Welcome back to Tariff Watch, the only channel breaking down how trade policies directly impact your wallet. In the next 13 minutes, I'm going to reveal exactly how Trump's proposed 2025 tariff plan could send your grocery bills skyrocketing by up to 30%, and why this could be the most expensive policy decision of the decade. Before we dive into the shocking numbers, let me ask you this. When was the last time you looked at your grocery receipt and didn't feel a punch to the gut? Well, buckle up because what I'm about to show you might make those current prices look like a bargain. Trump's 2025 tariff proposal isn't just another political talking point. It's a comprehensive restructuring of how America trades with the world. And here's what most news outlets won't tell you. This plan specifically targets the exact countries we depend on most for our food, clothing, and everyday essentials. Let's start with the core proposal. Trump has outlined a plan for universal tariffs of 10 to 20% on all imports, with special rates of 60 to 100% specifically targeting China. But here's where it gets interesting and expensive for you. These aren't just numbers on a policy paper. These percentages translate directly into price increases on items you buy every single week. Let me paint you a picture of what your typical grocery run might look like under these tariffs. That bag of coffee you grab every Monday morning, currently averaging $12 for a premium brand, but under a 20% universal tariff, you're looking at $1440. Doesn't sound too bad? Well, hold on. That's assuming coffee companies absorb some of the cost, which they rarely do. In reality, companies typically pass 100% of tariff costs to consumers, plus additional markup to maintain profit margins. So that $12 coffee bag could easily hit $15 or $16. Multiply that across your entire shopping cart, and we're talking about a significant monthly increase in your grocery budget. But coffee is just the beginning. Let's talk about produce, the fruits and vegetables that form the foundation of any healthy diet. The United States imports approximately 60% of its fresh fruit and 38% of its vegetables. Mexico alone supplies us with 69% of our vegetable imports and 37% of our fruit imports. Under the proposed tariff structure, Mexican produce would face that universal 10-20% tariff. Here's what that means in real terms. Those avocados you pay $1.50 each for, they could jump to $1.80 or even $2 each. Lime prices, already volatile, could see permanent increases of 25 to 30%, but it's not just the obvious Mexican imports. Chile supplies us with grapes during our off-season, Ecuador provides bananas year-round, and Central American countries fill our shelves with pineapples, melons, and winter vegetables. Now, let's dive deeper into something that might surprise you, the hidden tariff costs in processed foods. That box of cereal, those crackers, that frozen dinner, they all contain ingredients sourced globally. Food manufacturers are incredibly sophisticated in their supply chains, sourcing wheat from Canada, sugar from various countries, and oils from around the world to optimize costs. Under the new tariff regime, every single ingredient becomes more expensive. A typical breakfast cereal might contain wheat from Canada, sugar from Brazil, and packaging materials from China. Each component would face tariffs, creating a compounding effect that dramatically increases the final product cost. Take a simple frozen pizza as an example. The wheat for the crust might come from Canada. That's your universal tariff. The cheese could be made from milk powder imported from New Zealand. Another tariff hit. The vegetables on top might be sourced from Mexico. Tariff number three. The packaging likely comes from China. And there's your fourth tariff impact, potentially at the higher 60, 100% rate. What food industry executives are telling us behind closed doors is even more alarming. I've spoken with supply chain managers at major food companies, and they're already preparing contingency plans. Some are looking at switching suppliers, but here's the problem. There often aren't viable alternatives within the United States for many ingredients and products. Consider vanilla extract, a simple baking ingredient you probably have in your pantry right now. Over 80% of the world's vanilla comes from Madagascar. There's no domestic alternative that could scale to meet American demand. So when that tariff hits, vanilla prices simply go up, period. No substitution, no domestic sourcing alternative, just higher prices passed directly to you. But the grocery impact extends far beyond obvious imports. Let's talk about meat and poultry, sectors you might assume are purely domestic. The reality is more complex. Many livestock operations depend on imported feed ingredients. Soybean meal might come from Brazil, corn from Argentina, and specialized nutrients from various countries. Additionally, the processing and packaging equipment used by American meat companies is often manufactured overseas. When replacement parts become 20% more expensive due to tariffs, those costs get built into the price of every pound of ground beef, every package of chicken breasts, and every deli sandwich. The dairy industry presents another fascinating case study. While we think of American dairy as domestic, many operations rely on imported equipment, specialized feeds, and even breeding genetics from overseas. The International Dairy Foods Association has already raised concerns about how tariffs could impact everything from milk prices to specialty cheese availability. Now, let's expand beyond groceries to examine your everyday household costs. Clothing represents one of the most tariff sensitive categories in your budget. Currently, about 97% of clothing sold in America is imported. China alone accounts for roughly 30% of our clothing imports, making the proposed 60 to 100% China specific tariffs particularly impactful. Here's what this means for your wardrobe budget: that $30 shirt could jump to $48 under a 60% tariff. A $100 pair of shoes might cost $160. But the impact goes deeper than just final retail prices. Clothing companies are already adjusting their strategies, and what they're telling us should concern every consumer. First, many retailers are front loading inventory, importing massive quantities before potential tariffs take effect. While this might temporarily stabilize prices, it reduces flexibility and innovation. Companies become hesitant to introduce new styles or sizes when they're sitting on months of expensive inventory. Second, we're seeing a significant shift toward lower quality products. When tariffs make imports more expensive, companies look for ways to maintain their profit margins. One strategy is switching to cheaper materials and construction methods. That shirt that used to last 3 years might now fall apart after 1 year, but it's priced to maintain the company's profitability under the new tariff structure. The electronics and technology sector presents perhaps the most complex tariff impact scenario. China dominates global electronics manufacturing, producing everything from smartphones to kitchen appliances to automotive components. The proposed 6,100% tariffs on Chinese goods would create massive disruptions in this sector. Your smartphone, which might typically cost $800, could jump to $1,280 under a 60% tariff. But here's what makes this particularly problematic. Unlike food or clothing, electronics often don't have ready substitutes. While you might switch from Mexican to domestic avocados, there's no equivalent American made iPhone or Samsung Galaxy. This creates what economists call inelastic demand, situations where consumers have limited alternatives and must pay higher prices regardless. The result is a direct transfer of wealth from American consumers to the federal government through tariff revenue, with no corresponding increase in value or quality. Let's examine the automotive sector, which touches nearly every American household. Modern vehicles contain thousands of components sourced globally. The average car contains parts from dozens of countries, creating an incredibly complex tariff impact calculation. Every wire harness, sensor, computer chip, and even basic components like screws and bolts could face tariffs. The automotive industry has spent decades optimizing global supply chains, and tariffs force rapid, expensive reorganization. These costs inevitably appear in vehicle prices. Industry analysts estimate that comprehensive tariffs could add $3,000 to $6,000 to the average vehicle price. But it's not just new cars. The used car market would also see price increases as new vehicle prices rise and demand shifts to pre-owned alternatives. The construction and home improvement sector presents another massive tariff impact area. Building materials, tools, hardware, and appliances face significant import dependencies. China supplies substantial percentages of tools, fasteners, and building components, while various countries provide lumber, steel, and specialty materials. If you're planning home renovations or repairs, tariffs could significantly impact your budget. That new refrigerator might cost 15 to 25% more. Construction tools and hardware could see similar increases. Even basic materials like screws, nails, and electrical components face potential tariff impacts. For homeowners, this creates a difficult timing decision. Do you accelerate planned projects before tariffs take effect, or do you postpone improvements hoping prices eventually stabilize? Many contractors are already advising clients to secure materials and appliances now, creating supply shortages and price volatility even before tariffs officially begin. The healthcare and pharmaceutical sector represents a particularly sensitive area for tariff impacts. While life saving medications might receive exemptions, many over the counter drugs, medical devices, and health related products face potential tariffs. China is a major supplier of pharmaceutical ingredients and generic drug components. India provides substantial portions of our generic drug supply. Tariffs in this sector don't just impact your wallet, they could affect medication availability and healthcare access. Personal care products, vitamins, and medical supplies could all see price increases. That bottle of vitamins you buy monthly might jump 20–30% in cost. Basic medical supplies like bandages, thermometers, and home testing kits could become significantly more expensive. Now, let's address the timeline and implementation realities. Tariffs don't appear overnight, but their impact often precedes official implementation. Companies begin adjusting prices as soon as tariff threats become credible policy possibilities. We're already seeing this phenomenon. Some importers are increasing inventory levels, creating temporary supply chain disruptions. Others are negotiating new supplier relationships, often at higher costs than their current arrangements. These preparatory actions create price pressures even before tariffs officially take effect. The seasonal timing of tariff implementation also matters enormously. If tariffs take effect before the holiday shopping season, consumers would face higher prices on electronics, toys, and gifts. If implementation occurs before spring planting season, agricultural input costs could rise significantly. Regional differences in tariff impacts deserve special attention. Some areas of the country depend more heavily on imported goods due to geography, demographics, or local economic structures. Border regions, port cities, and areas with large immigrant populations often have more diverse import dependent retail ecosystems. Rural areas might face particular challenges. While urban consumers might have more product alternatives and shopping options, rural consumers often rely on specific supply chains for everything from automotive parts to agricultural supplies. Tariff disruptions in these areas could have disproportionate impacts. The small business sector faces unique tariff challenges. Large corporations have teams of trade specialists, alternative supplier relationships, and financial resources to navigate tariff changes. Small businesses often lack these resources, making them particularly vulnerable to supply chain disruptions and cost increases. Your local restaurant, retail store, or service business might struggle more with tariff impacts than large national chains. This could lead to business closures, reduced services, or significant price increases in your local community. International retaliation represents another layer of complexity. When the United States imposes tariffs, other countries typically respond with their own tariffs on American exports. This creates a feedback loop that can impact domestic prices, even for goods that don't directly face import tariffs. For example, if other countries impose retaliatory tariffs on American agricultural exports, it could reduce demand for domestic crops, potentially lowering domestic food prices temporarily. However, these effects are typically outweighed by the direct import tariff impacts on consumer goods. The energy sector provides a crucial case study for understanding indirect tariff effects. While America has increased domestic oil production, we still import substantial quantities of refined petroleum products, natural gas, and renewable energy components. Tariffs on energy imports don't just affect gas prices, they ripple through the entire economy. Transportation costs increase, manufacturing becomes more expensive, and ultimately, prices rise across all sectors. This creates a multiplier effect where tariffs on one sector amplify price increases throughout the economy. So, what can you do to prepare for these potential changes? First, understand that tariffs create permanent structural changes in pricing, not temporary fluctuations. Unlike weather related supply disruptions or seasonal price variations, tariff impacts tend to persist as long as the policies remain in place. Consider accelerating purchases of durable goods if tariff implementation seems likely. Items like appliances, electronics, tools, and furniture that you'll need anyway might be worth buying before prices increase. However, be strategic. Don't overextend financially based on uncertain policy outcomes. Diversify your shopping and consumption patterns. Look for domestic alternatives where quality and price make sense. Support local businesses and farmers markets. Consider generic or store brands, which sometimes have different supply chains than name brand products. Build relationships with local suppliers and service providers. Small local businesses often have more flexibility to find alternative sources or adjust their operations compared to large national chains locked into specific supply contracts. The bottom line is this: Trump's 2025 tariff proposals represent potentially the most significant change to American consumer costs in decades. Whether you support or oppose the policy goals, the mathematical reality is that comprehensive tariffs translate directly into higher prices for everyday goods. Understanding these impacts allows you to make informed decisions about your spending, savings, and political choices. The next few months will be crucial for monitoring policy developments and preparing for potential changes. That's a wrap on today's deep dive into how tariff policies could reshape your everyday costs. If this analysis helped you understand these complex economic relationships, make sure to subscribe to Tariff Watch for more breaking coverage of trade policies that impact your wallet. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming analysis of specific industry impacts and regional differences. And remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to protecting your financial future.